There we
There we
Live.
go.
What's up, guys? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Deck Talk Podcast. And real quick, I want to apologize. I had technical issues, and I'm not talking about Pappy this time. So we, it is time for a new computer. But before we get started, let's take care of some business. Ready to hook into some serious bass? Grab Bruiser baits, a tournament-proven soft plastic and hard plastic baits that is proven to put fish in the boat every time. Bruiser Baits, fish the best. Get yours at bruiserbaits.com and make sure you use discount code DECKTALK10. But guys, if you don't know, I'm Colin Burnett.
And I'm Pappy J. How's all the people out there in the old scroll land? How y'all guys doing? Hey, we're gonna have another great episode here, and can't wait to get into all this. So stay tuned.
Yes. So guys and gals, if we have a special guest coming on, and I've been real excited since I cast. We got to meet the Pluff Mud Princess herself, and we're excited to have her on. But guys, if you do not know the Pluff Mud Princess, this is Katie Joe. Katie, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course, guys. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm glad we got to, meet at ICAST and, find a time to sit down together.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it. And so can you tell everybody? Because I hope. I mean, when we go live, we usually have over in between 2,000 2,500 people. So I hope all of them are followers of yourself. So how did you one get into fishing, and then what made you decide to start a social media and a page and stuff for Pluff Mud Princess?
Yeah. A lot of people, and when they, talk about how they started fishing, that's a lot of times, their dad or their brother or their uncle or somebody, taught them, how to fish from a young age. And I tell people in an ideal world that would have been how I learned. My dad, he loved to fish. He was a big bass angler, and in an ideal world, he would have took the time to take me fishing and, been out there showing me how to cast and tie knots and things like that. But unfortunately, he had a, type of heart disease. And so a lot of my
Mm.
childhood was, spent seeing him have heart attacks and go to the hospital. And so a lot of things that,
Uh,
nobody wants to go through. But, he passed, unfortunately, when I was only 8. So there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for me to really, learn from him or start young with fishing. And so for a long time, fishing was kind of lost for me. And it was in one of my teenage years, I met a guy that liked to fish. And one, Christmas, he got a fishing kayak. And I was like, I want a fishing kayak, And so I went and got a fishing kayak. I remember I was like, Mom, we need to get a fishing kayak. She's like, okay, I guess. And so we got it. But I tell people it's just, even from that first trip, it was not only just something that was so natural and something that, I enjoyed, but, it felt like a way to connect back to my dad as well. And so, once me and that guy broke up, it was just that realization of, if this is something I love so much and I want to go and do, why don't I just go do it? Why do I need anybody to take me? And so
right.
I went out on the water, and some days I caught fish and other days I didn't. But, just like in life, you learn from your mistakes and you improve along the way. And so, that was 11 years ago now. And so
Wow.
about 5 years ago, I had my little boy, my son, and, if you have kids, you can understand sometimes, you lose that community you maybe once had. And so it was a time when TikTok was kind of, COVID, just before COVID was kind of going
Mhm.
on, and TikTok was big, and just, was scrolling through there like a lot of us do, and, saw some of the videos, and I'm like, why does this video have 10 million likes and 20,000 million views? Like, it doesn't make sense. This is the silliest video I've ever seen. Like I could do this in my sleep. And so, like, in a way, I just started making some silly fishing videos, and also at the time, TikTok Live was big. And so just kind of started finding community through there that, like, hey, there's other people that enjoy fishing, enjoy being on the water, enjoy having the good time, with outdoors and what it can bring, that tranquility. And kind of grew from there in the different platforms as far as social media. But it was through there that, I realized other people, maybe didn't have that opportunity to start fishing from a young age or didn't have a mentor to show them how to fish. And so that's where a lot
Exactly.
of the education component, the education events and classes I do come from that because, I feel like everybody should have the opportunity to learn how to fish. It doesn't matter where you are in life, it should be something everybody can enjoy for sure.
Yeah, and its thing is we tell people all the time it's something about being at the water. If you're fishing from the bank or in a boat or a kayak, water therapy does wonders for your soul and mind and all that as well. Um, and so we we thoroughly understand. My big problem though is when I take people out.
Oh,
It's
here we
hard to
go.
get somebody to go out with you during the week. That will contribute to the fish catch, and so most of the time, like they'll go out there and he will only catch one or two fish. So, but
Hey,
do you
well,
have
whoa,
that
whoa, whoa,
problem
whoa, whoa, whoa,
too?
whoa, 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 whoa. Now let's back
Pointing
up just a
fingers.
minute there, big dog, because the last time we went out, I do recall
Yeah,
you
you got me
blanked.
last time.
You blanked.
Yeah,
Okay. So
you did.
one or two fish, 1 or 2 points. It don't matter. A win's a win. So you can sit there and talk all you want to, but
Yeah, yeah.
it
I
is
will
what it
say he did,
is.
but there's no video evidence of that. So,
We don't need it. We
Yeah,
don't need it.
it didn't happen. Yep.
that's right. That's right. So, one thing, the videos from your content and stuff that I really enjoy is your cast netting, and I know um, that it's kind of hard to demonstrate and talk about it or something like that. But can you hit a little bit about one, like how did you get into cast netting, and what do you do, or what can you tell somebody that may be wanting to learn how to cast net?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think cast netting's definitely, a good skill to learn, especially when it comes to, catching your own live bait, which is, really beneficial, especially when, you're trying to target certain fish. Live bait can sometimes be the difference in catching them or not. And so as far as demonstration, that like you said, would be a whole thing. But as far as tips, I think starting with a smaller net is always best. If you can start with, a 4 to 6 foot size cast net, that's where you're going to learn. Go out in your
Right.
yard. That's how I learned. Go out in your yard, get your cast net, practice that technique of throwing and opening, spreading that net open is the biggest thing. Because that way, when you're on the water, you feel confident. You have those skills,
Yeah.
you've practiced, and it's not so much as far as, it's a lot of pressure being out there sometimes, especially if you're on the front of the boat and somebody's driving the boat and you've got to throw the cast net and you got to get it back to you and get the bait in, it can be a lot. So having that good
Right.
foundational skill is definitely going to, be beneficial. I actually, a big part of wanting to throw cast nets was bait shrimping. That's a thing down here, kind of in the coastal, here in South Carolina. Here in the fall time, we can go out and put PVC poles out and make little kind of bait balls or little clay bait balls for the shrimp.
Wow.
And so the shrimp will come and feed on the bait balls, and you go along to each pole and throw your net on them, and kind of bait them in. So that was a big thing of like, not only do I
Yeah.
want to throw one, but I want to throw a bigger net to be able to kind of cover larger ground. So a lot of fun different things you can do with the cast net, for sure, as far
Right.
as,
So
getting your
do you
food.
throw? Do you throw like? Is yours like that? You typically throw? Is yours like a 8 to 10 foot cast net?
I typically like like a 6 if I'm, just out on the kayak. I'll throw anywhere
Yeah.
from like a 5 to a 6, especially a lot of times in the kayak, I'm sitting down throwing. So as far as that angle and stuff like that, it
Right.
does
Yeah.
benefit you to
That.
sometimes have a smaller net. But
True.
I've thrown all the way up to a 12. But when you get into
Whew.
the bigger nets, as far as that load and having to reload it and throw it, it'll wear you out. So, like I said, those big
Oh.
nets will definitely, put some work in.
But so what? How do you go about like finding the bait and knowing that that's the bait that you're wanting to throw at for the cast net?
Yeah, great question. A lot of it's reading the water is the biggest thing. time of year is going to be another factor. A lot of times, especially as we move kind of into the fall and into the winter here in the low country, a lot of those like readily available bait sources, live bait sources, are going to move off. They're going to move down to Florida because our waters get too cold here. So a lot of it
Right.
is knowing the time of year. Like, in the summer, we have, shrimp in our creek, and you can almost go up into every creek and throw the cast net and get some shrimp off the bottom. As far as like the mullet and, finger mullet and, like mud minnows and things like that, you just kind of read the water. You're sitting there, you'll see them, the little kind of V or little wake that they make coming up the creek, and you just got to be ready. So that's where having those skills and being able to open that net and get it on top of them as they're coming, is definitely going to
Right.
benefit you for sure.
So it's important to be able, and I think what that you call it like pancaking the cast net. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
If you open it up,
so
yeah.
so you want it is important to make sure that it does spread completely out by the time it hits the water. Is that correct?
It's gonna improve your chances for sure. I mean, like, it's kind of a joke as far as, like, tacos catch bait too. So, like, if you throw a net and it doesn't open and it kinda makes, like, a little wonky,
Right.
whatever, it's called, like, a taco, and if you're on top of bait and there's enough bait, you might get lucky and catch some bait as well, but having that net wide open, not only are you improving that I can't think of the right word, like, your circus space,
So
your surface area,
right.
you know what I mean? You have a larger area to be able to catch
Right.
that bait. And especially depending on depth of water as well. You know what I mean? If you need to drop that net down and it doesn't open great, you know what I mean? As it sinks, it's not going to sink the way you want it necessarily. So it's all kind of just depends on, the bait you're catching. But primarily, yeah, you want to try to open that net the best you can to catch your
Right.
bait.
So
Yeah.
so have you ever caught like any big fish while cast netting?
Oh yeah, yeah. You'll down here in the low country, you'll definitely run into some redfish and trout and things like that. And it's always a fun experience, especially if you have a smaller net, when you catch a larger redfish in the net and you've got to kind of reel it back into you. It's it's fun. But yeah, no, you cannot take them for sure with a cast net. You gotta let them go since they're game fish.
So
Yeah.
have you caught a large amount of fish, and is it heavy to pull back in?
Yeah, yeah, depending on what you get, especially in the summertime, a lot of our menhaden, you'll sometimes get a lot of smaller menhaden. And so if got a large enough net and you get enough of those in that net, a lot of times they'll get stuck in the mesh of the net. And they call it's called a see all these fun terminologies we have for fishing. It's called a Christmas tree because all the little menhaden will just be stuck in the
Mm,
net and you hold it up like this. The way the cast net comes down, it looks like a lit up Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So, not a great problem to have because then you gotta pick all those little fish out of the net, so
oh
Well, so
wow.
we got a good buddy of ours here that he does majority of his guide trips are live bait, and he cast nets
Mhm,
for them. And we've been out with him quite a few times, and it's interesting to see him actually go out and do it.
mhm,
And he's phenomenal with the forward facing sonar, and he can just
mhm,
go and just look at the screen and be like, oh, I don't that's not the ones I'm looking for. And
mhm,
he's like, I'm needing it to be 5 to 6 inches or whatever. And he said that's what the
mhm,
and he'll tell you. And it's amazing to see him go out there. And like we've gone, and he's cast netted on some stuff, and he's pulled in like, I don't know. It seems like it's 40,
mhm.
50 gizzard shad that he's got in his
Nice.
net, and I'm like, I don't know. My dad tells me, he said you need to learn how to do it, and I'm like, I'd rather once I get out there, I'm just ready to go. And so,
Yeah.
but it's very interesting to watch,
Mhm,
and um and I think and I think that's the reason why I like watching your videos on the cast netting is because it is very much a technique, and once you kind of get it, it's like riding a bike from what I figured. I mean, I may be completely wrong, but um, to once you get it down, it could be very useful for you.
yeah, yeah, and like I said, a lot of it is having the proper technique, as far as how to hold the net in your hand and how to hold it a proper way to make sure when you toss the net, it opens up. I feel like y'all came to, we had a cast net throwing contest at the FiTech booth at, ICAST,
Yeah.
but a lot of the people that I helped, not to say the ladies did better with the instruction and taking, as far as what to do, but some of the guys, I think when they go to throw it, they want to sling it. They want to like throw it out there. And it's like you're almost letting those weights, you're letting that weight and that momentum of that net. And if you're holding it correctly, that momentum of that net will kind of spread it open versus you're chucking it out there. I feel like a lot of people
Right.
tend to chuck it where it's more of just kind of letting the motion of that, what you have in your hand go. So,
We got a question from the traveling fisherman, and he says, "Is there any tips for a beginner wanting to learn to use a net?"
mhm. Yeah, so like I said, start small. I think starting with a smaller cast net, and learning that technique as far as how to hold it in your hand. Y'all even saw, there's a way to kind of, you know, make those wraps with that rope in your hand to where you're not having anything caught up in your hand, and then making sure that when you put that actual net in your hand, you're aligning it properly to where when you go to toss that net and that momentum, it's spreading open versus trying to chuck it out there. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of great, tutorials and YouTube, videos on how to, throw a cast net. I think everybody, who throws cast nets has their own little kind of personal twist on it per se.
Right.
The way I learned is holding it in my teeth, and some people are completely against that, but that's just the way I learned and the way I like to throw my net. And so it's just
Well,
like
see,
anything else.
that's what I was. That's what well, I was going to kind of wanted to know: is there any obstacle or obstacles that are harder to learn to throw a cast net versus other areas? I guess I'm not. I don't really know the terminology or anything like that because I don't throw a cast net, obviously. But is there something harder to learn how to do that, or is it just kind of basic knowledge? I guess.
Is there an easier way to learn, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, find, personal preferences, everything. So, find a tutorial, whatever you like online that, it fits well and this makes sense to you. And then, like I said earlier, go out in your yard and just practice throwing that cast net. Practice opening it up. Practice how do you put your line back in your hand, because that's a lot of thing is, people will throw the cast net, but then they don't realize, okay, you need to be ready to get that rope back in your hand and looped back in your hand correctly. So when, if you didn't miss the bait on that first cast, you're ready to reload and go back again. So practicing is the biggest thing. Go in your yard, get a 4 foot cast net, 6 foot cast net, because I feel like a lot of guys are like, I can't throw a 4 foot. I'm a man. I'm like, whatever, get a 6 foot, whatever makes you feel
Yeah.
like a man, like get the 6 foot, go out in your
we,
yard, get a cleared area and just practice throwing it. That's the
we ain't
biggest
trying to
thing.
kill your pride or nothing, but
No,
hey,
yeah. He's
I,
like, I've got 2 more feet in me. I'm like, whatever, go for it.
well, see, that's me. I'd probably start out with a 4 foot. I mean, because
It,
hey,
it, and
I,
like I said, I like a little 4 foot sometimes. They're easy to
eh,
throw in the boat and have it kind of thing,
yeah.
so it
So I
works.
guess depending on the depth of the water is the timing when you let it sink all the way down and then to time to pull it up and all that, or
Yeah, and what bait you're targeting as well. A lot of bait is going to be kind of, subsurface or on top of, not top of the water, but right below the
right.
surface of the water. A lot of the, mud minnows and the finger mullet, and then a lot of your shrimp and stuff like that, they are going to be lower. Like he was mentioning, the electronics, those are definitely huge. A lot of the
Hmm.
charter captains, they heavily rely on those as far as, hey, I'm running into the spot, and especially in the wintertime, our shrimp will go kind of into these deeper holes, and it's 40, 60 feet down, you have to be able to read that electronic and say, like your buddy, they're a few inches off the bottom. Yeah, that looks like shrimp to me, and be able to kind of, go engage that,
Yeah.
which, it's
Right.
definitely things people don't think about when they think about, oh, I'm going out fishing with a charter captain. It's like they are out there procuring that bait as well. So definitely, a job that, takes a lot of appreciation.
Yeah.
So what is the wildest thing that you have caught in your net?
That I've caught in my net.
Yeah.
Um, Always in the saltwater, it's always the gar, and those are never a
Mm.
fun one. We've got the spotted gar in the saltwater, and so you get one of those in the cast net. They've got the long shark teeth on their
Mhm.
Mangle it
beaks.
up, won't it?
Yeah, yeah, tangle your net all up, tear it all up. Yeah, they are no fun to catch for sure. So always try to avoid those definitely.
So no baby gators or anything like that?
All right, we're live, aren't we? No, I'm no, no. I try to stay away from the gators. And a lot of you've got to check your regulations as well. I know freshwater, as far as like cast netting in certain states, is definitely different. So always check your regulations as well, as far as if you can even use a cast net to catch bait, or procure bait in your area, because I know
Okay.
different places have different regulations.
Yeah. So, speaking of gators, like, cause some of the videos I've seen that you've done, and I've seen you hop out of your kayak, and you're waist deep in the water, and you're just out there fishing, having fun, and for us being from Tennessee area or Chattanooga area, we have nothing in our waters that's going to eat us, and so. Is it nerve wracking to to be in the water with something that could possibly come up and just take a chunk out of you? I mean, because you got the gators, and then you also have what sharks can get up in the what do y'all call them, up in
The
the
crick.
the yeah, creeks.
Crick.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. She
I
said
told
crick.
you, Pappy. She's country, so
No, what's
so,
crazy about that is the first time I ever heard that was when I was in Afghanistan and deployed with some guys, and they kept saying crick. And I was like, what, do they got a crick in their neck or something? I didn't know what they were referring to, but they kept talking about crossing a creek or something about a creek. And I was like, what is going on? And then it dawned on me what they meant. Meant for my
what they were trying
terminology
to say,
was
yeah.
creek,
He's like, I need a
and
chiropractor. Something's not right with these guys.
creek. So that jogged a memory right there. That was
That's
that was pretty
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. No, no. I mean, like I said, I'm, saltwater wise, especially with the salinity in the creeks, which is a lot of times where, redfish, and that's where I'm going to be in the saltwater. There's one creek I know that as you go up it, it gets more fresh, and then it's more like brackish is what we call it, where it's that fresh and
Mhm.
saltwater mix. And they'll sometimes live there. But I don't know. I think it's just like the funniest thing for people who don't live like with alligators per se. Like it's a normal thing here. Like we grew up with them. It's like you leave them alone, they leave us alone. Like I feel like there's
Yeah.
like some kind of like alligator fear mongering society like in the northern states, and they got like posters of like beware. Like I don't know. No, so definitely not really worried there. The sharks are the same way. As long as you leave them alone, it's never been an issue for sure. I know down in Florida, some of like the bull sharks and things like that, they can be more aggressive, but for the most part, like alligators are not aggressive. Like they want nothing to do with you, as long as you're not like, in mating season around like a nest or something like that,
Right.
you're good.
Yeah. So, because, and which I've told this story multiple times, like when we go to ICAST and stuff, we always try to make a trip down to the Everglades and
Mhm.
to go catch some peacocks. And we've been like one of the last times that we had went, we had like a, let's say 10, 11 foot gator that stayed right with the boat as where, and it followed us. And
Mhm.
like when you would catch it, like it would come up and bring its nose up onto the gunnel of the boat, and I'm over here like, goodness gracious, it's crazy, and just to see this big old alligator right next to the boat, and and so and again we don't have anything like that that
Mm-mm.
tries to eat anything that we catch, and but it is kind of the for the first couple times it was nerve wracking being out by them, and
Mhm.
just seeing you like these things are 10 foot. We're only maybe a foot and a half off the water, and these things can just easily, in my mind, just easily just hop up on that boat. And so,
Mhm.
but we've seen people out there on kayaks and stuff right there in the canals with us, and
Yeah.
I'm over there. I'm like, you guys are crazy being that
Mhm.
close, but I don't know. It's to somebody from Tennessee. It's just it's nerve wracking for sure. And
Well, and the
so
hardest thing is like a lot of those gators, somebody maybe has been feeding them. That's the biggest issue. Like if
yeah,
we have any issues down here, it's a lot of the neighborhood ponds that like, the small dogs and things like that. People walking their dog like right by the water, or like somebody was feeding the gator in the neighborhood. And then like it gets curious and it also gets kind of reliant on, humans for food. And then it's just not a
right.
good situation. So
Yeah.
there's like a term down here that a fed gator is a dead gator. So, just respect them, give them their space. Like that is the biggest thing. Like y'all did. Like he's there, you see him, but just like leave him alone like he's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, um, so how, like, with you doing like the to fishing, like getting into fishing and starting your pages and stuff, what would be a way that you would say that we could try to be able to get more like females involved into fishing? In which over the past couple of years, that I mean, we've seen a rise in um, where females are getting out there fishing and stuff. So, what would be like your advice to be able to kind of, if there's guys that may have a daughter or a wife or a girlfriend or whatever, that's to try to get them out on the water fishing, if it's kayak, boat, or even bank fishing, what would be your advice to be able to kind of help get more women involved in fishing?
Yeah, I think the best thing is just really, go fishing. That's really just it. You know what I mean? Whether you're a woman, who wants to start fishing, you know what I mean? Just get out
Yeah,
there, even if you don't have all the right gear and the equipment and all the know how, get out there and just do it. Especially, for people that have, a female family member, whether it be their daughter or, whether it be their sister or their
right.
mom or whoever it is, or even get involved with an organization. There's so many different organizations that teach youth how to fish, but just get involved, go fishing, take the time to share, not only the passion and the love and the enjoyment of fishing, but just some of those foundational skills, those basics of fishing, how to do some of the things that somebody taught you how to fish. I think that's the
Mm.
Yeah,
biggest thing is, a lot of people want to go fishing, but they don't know how, so it's like if more people just shared that, this is how you do it. This is, it's not that hard. Like I'll show you how to do it. I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of the educational classes. I remember one of the first it was a fishing 102, a ladies fishing 102 I had. And, at the end of the class, I had older woman come to me. She's probably in her 70s, 60s, 70s, and somebody would be like, older. I'm sorry, that doesn't even sound right. There was a experienced lady in life, but she came to me and it was just really sweet where she came to me and she, took my hand and she was like, I thought I was like, oh gosh, I messed up in the class or something. But she said, I just want you to know I've been fishing with my husband at the back of the boat for 25 years, and he's never once taken the time to explain any of that to me. And it just like it touched me so hard because it's
yeah,
like, it's just that impact, of just taking the
Mhm.
time, being patient, being present, like, sharing your time, that's the biggest
yeah.
thing. If you don't have somebody directly, sign up with an organization, see what you can do to help in your community because there really is a lot, So I think that really is the biggest. It's just show up, be there, have the representation of you can do it too. So
And
Yeah.
and that's the cool thing about the fishing community. Well, any of it, hunting, fishing, outdoors in general, is you can reach out to these people.
mhm,
Anybody really that,
mhm,
and they'll take the time. They
yeah.
will take the time, to help you get involved in stuff because in the grand scheme of things, it ain't all it's doing. It's helping conservation. It's helping the outdoors. It's getting more people out of the house
Mhm,
and enjoying the family and stuff like that. So, you know, if there's somebody that you like that you watch a lot or whatever, don't be afraid to reach out to them
mhm.
because
Yeah.
the chances are they'll reach back out to you, and if they don't, then it maybe in time they will. If whether it being pro angler or a content creator or whatever, but they will reach back out, and that's what I love about the community, the outdoors community is we're very unselfish, I guess you
Mhm.
could say. We I know myself, I love to help people in whatever, if it's hunting, fishing, whatever I can do to help, a youth or a more experienced person, or something like that. I'm always willing to. My door's always open. Is I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And same here, like
So,
I said.
um, the traveling fisherman said, "What is your favorite species of fish to target?"
Mm. See, that's a hard one because if I had to be just South Carolina based, I'd say redfish. But then if you've never caught a snook, they are also
Oh
Mm,
a very
yeah,
high candidate on the list because they are a lot of fun
yes.
as well, especially in the dock lights in Florida at night. They are a
Haven't
lot of
done
fun
that.
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Been in the
Yeah.
mangrove and caught them, but never at night in the dock lights. But
Yeah.
that
Yeah. That's
that's
fun.
oh my gosh, man!
They're like
I
circling like little sharks. And all you see is just the shadow of them. It's gnarly. It's a lot of fun.
So,
they're a good fish to catch. They truly
Mhm.
are.
and
Definitely.
what do you like? What do you like compare like freshwater wise? That do you compare like a red like a bull red or something like that, or even the snook? What do you compare them to freshwater? Like fighting wise of how the like their demeanor and stuff.
Hmm. Honestly, it's hard. Like I said, see, there's a lot of the bigger, like bucket list, larger freshwater species that I still want to like cross off my list just because a lot of them, we have like, the Santee and like upper some of the lakes
Right.
and stuff like that here that I just unfortunately have not ventured yet, but it's on my list. But, I'd probably have to say like a striper, like I said, I haven't caught one, but I'd
Yeah.
say, as far as, some of those big striper, as big as they can get, you know what I mean? Definitely. And then one that I wish we had here was the big muskies and stuff like that. But again, just one that we don't have here. But something similar that I don't know if you've ever played with a pit bull. That's a very specific question. But if you've ever played with a pit bull, they kind of like shake their heads like when they're
Yeah.
playing kind of thing. Probably other dogs too. But anyways, when you're fighting a redfish and you're reeling it in, they literally will just kind of be down there like shaking their heads back and forth, trying to shake your hook out. And so it's kind of,
Right.
an interesting thing when you hook into a fish. You can almost immediately tell it's a redfish because it's down there just shaking its head. And, they've got super long runs where they'll just take off and, just take line. And there's not really much you can do at that point. You just got to kind of let them wear
Let them
themselves
go.
out and, regain line where you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those are that is a bucket list fish for me
Hmm.
to go and catch. I've never done it. I've caught snook before, and um, but I tell people like freshwater for me. There's the fight that a peacock has is by far I think is one of my favorite fighting fish and in the freshwater sense.
Hmm.
Um, but there's, I mean, and it starts from the time when they actually hit your bait to the time that you get them landed and in the kayak or boat or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, because it just seems like they're just 90 to nothing, just going. And when they
Hmm.
hit, I tell people, and they, because like when we go to the Everglades, like we'll use a like the smallest whopper plopper, like I think it's like the 80 or something like that,
Hmm.
and we'll throw. And when they hit that top water, I tell people it sounds like somebody's throwing a cinder block into the water, just how hard it is. And I'm like, man, there's nothing like it. It's to me that's my favorite freshwater fish to go and catch. When I have an opportunity to go, that's what I love to do. But the the big reds like that are definitely on the list to be able to go try to knock out here sometime soon if it's because we got people that go down to Louisiana
Hmm.
and so to do it and they're like you just go down there and they're like just go and just have fun, you can go catch them all day long. And I'm like, man, I just love I would just love to. And so um what with do you use like artificial baits and stuff as well for when you are like catching those big reds?
For the big reds, you can catch them on artificial for sure. But a lot of times, if you're targeting the larger redfish, it's going to be with like usually cut bait.
Right.
So you'll have some kind of form of kind of a larger enhanced Carolina rig per se. So you're usually fishing around some kind of structure, a lot of the bridges and things like that when they come into the fall to kind of spawn.
Hmm.
But our DNR actually just put out a thing. I think it was either today or yesterday about kind of like not catching them per se and letting them spawn and, not putting so much pressure on them and, catching them after they spawn kind of thing, which, it's
Right.
it's good to think about, especially those big fish, how old they are and, how long they've been in the waters and things like that. So, I don't think it'll stop people per se, but it's good to still, proper, handle them properly
Right.
and return them to the water safely. And, especially with our new regulations here in South Carolina, there's new regulations on the hook size you have to use. So if you're targeting the big, large redfish, it has to be a 4/0. Um, Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an offset hook. I'm pretty sure it has to be a 4/0 circle hook,
Circle hook.
offset.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because there's an inline and offset. I'm pretty sure it has to be offset, and if they catch you, not using that, then they'll fine you. But a lot of
Really.
it has to do with those larger redfish because the way they're hooked, a lot of times they're ingesting those hooks because people just are targeting them and don't really know what they're doing per se, when it comes to
Right.
the right technique and the right handling and the right, reviving them kind of things. So,
Yeah,
which
because and we tell people because we're all about like the fish care and maintenance. That
Mhm.
like we're once you catch the fish and hook them and stuff, like you're responsible for that fish to be able to get it back into the water for
Hmm.
somebody
Yep.
else to be able to catch it.
Exactly.
Um, and so when and I don't know like if being in a boat and stuff, I know like in a kayak, I mean, there's really no way to kind of box a fish or anything like that and put it in a live well. But for us, like we use fish lung, and which it just puts pure oxygen into it. And so, like when we're out catching some largemouth or smallies or something like that. That we when we catch them, sometimes we won't automatically just put them right back into the water. We will put them into the live well, let them get
Mhm.
that pure oxygen and being able to get kind of revived right back up, and then we'll release it here after a few minutes of being into the box.
Mhm.
Um, and because we we kind of tell people like you're kind of responsible for that fish up until the next person catches it. And so, I mean,
Mhm.
um, if you just kind of just keep it out and want to take 100 pictures of a big fish, and we're like, now you really only have if you're going to try to release it. We've seen like studies and stuff like you really only want it out maybe like a minute and a half out of water it
Mhm.
before it starts kind of messing with it.
Oh
So,
yeah.
um, so do you catch any like sheephead and stuff like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of sheep's head down here, a lot of the pilings and stuff like that. The oysters are really good for it. The fiddler crabs are really good for it. Gigging is another thing we do a lot down here in the low country too. So that's always pretty fun for the sheep's head and flounder and redfish.
I see. I never heard of the doing the gigging for sheephead. I've heard of it for flounder
Mm-hmm.
and then also frog gigging, but
Mm-hmm.
um, so so the sheep's head will come up that shallow to be able to where you could do that.
So most of the sheep's head gigging down in South Florida is most of the sheep's head gigging I've done down there. So similar to probably how you do here as far as, going kind of at a lower tide like you would for flounder, but really just kind of having, a smaller boat to be able to kind of, ease up against the docks or the pilings of the docks and, they're hanging around a lot those pilings and you
Right.
come in through with the light and you've got to be quick because I mean a lot of people think that they're just going to like sit there. It's like no, you're either on it or they're gone kind of thing. But yeah, just going along the docks and along the pilings and just targeting them like that, super super fun.
I bet. I can only imagine. And so with because this is something that we don't have to even think about say, because we don't have tidal water, and
Yeah.
so how how do you like if you're going out? Let's say we're going to Charleston, and we want to go out and hit these creeks, or whatever you want to call them. So is it best to be able to go out like when it is high tide, or is low tide, or in the mix of when it's in the process of going from one to another? When it would be like for somebody that's just trying to just go and catch some fish?
Yeah. So I always recommend a lower tide for sure. Like my general rule of thumb, I say 2 to 3 hours before low tide and then 2 to 3 hours after low tide. Also understanding your tidal charts is the biggest thing.
Right,
There's technically they say like two tides a day, but there's like four tides really. There's a high tide, high tide, low tide. And so those are rotating every six
right,
hours. So the biggest thing is understanding like that water flow, as far as, those fish are dependent on it. So wherever that water's going is where the fish are going to go in a way, like a lot of the creeks you fish up in may not have water in them at a certain time. And so, low tide is definitely going to be better because you don't have as much water to cover, right? There's not as much ground that the fish can go
right,
and hide in per se. You'll go up in the grass at high tide. You're able to kind of visualize the structure better. Why are the fish biting at this point? Well, there's oyster beds under here. There's a down tree. You can really visualize those structures, as that tide's coming in, especially. And then, like I said, you low tide with that water being reduced, your bait is kind of more, sectioned off. And so a lot of times those fish just can't get to that bait. And so if you have what they want and you're in front of them, you're going to get them. You know what I mean?
right.
So, it definitely helps at a lower tide. Not saying you can't catch them at high tide, but I definitely prefer a low tide, for a lot of those reasons listed.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And see,
Yeah.
because well, the only time like we will have on the Tennessee River, we call it summer pool and winter pool. So,
Hmm.
um, actually, here in the, after Labor Day, the water will start dropping down to winter pool, and it
Mm-hmm.
will drop about 8 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually after Memorial Day is when they will say that it's going to be at summer pool. So,
Hmm.
um, but so we don't really have to worry about any kind of water movement besides, I
Okay.
mean, on the river system and stuff, we fish are more current driven, and
Mm-hmm.
so we base our fishing trip and stuff of like when they're going to be pulling more water and stuff, because they'll use it to generate electric and stuff through the dams. And so um, we we judge more of when they're pulling, because you want the current to kind of be around like um, 31,000, which is 31 gallons per second
Wow.
um, through the turbines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is, um, and when with that, the fish will set up to where um, they're sitting on points and stuff to where they're ready to ambush and stuff, and actually kind of eat when that current is more of a steady current. And because we've noticed that fish, bass, like largemouth and smallmouth, they're kind of, I'd say they're lazy fish, because they'll just sit there and just kind of just face upstream and just let everything just come down to them on a
Yeah.
river system.
Yeah.
Not a
They're
So,
bad way
definitely
to be.
lazy.
Yeah, a lot of fish are like that too, especially when it comes to the tides here. That's why I tell a lot of
right,
people is, you got to think about the way that water's flowing. A lot of people will be fishing in the right area or fish the right oyster bar, but they're casting at the wrong end. The tide's flowing out this way. Those fish aren't
right,
going to be, sitting at the opposite side kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
same kind of thing you talked about with that water flow. In between the high tide and low tide, it's called slack tide, where that water just kind of slows and stills. And a lot of people will go, well, why did the fish stop biting? Well, it's slack tide. So, like I said, that
yeah,
water movement is very important. They're very dependent upon it. So, definitely
Yeah.
understand that when you come down here. And
yeah.
don't get stuck on the sandbars because a lot of people will do that. They'll be fishing up in a creek and then have no water. So, pay attention to the tides.
Be up a creek without a paddle.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, um, That's funny. So, what has been like one of your favorite fishing trips? I mean, not just saying that it has to be in Charleston, but anywhere that you've gone and been able to experience. Where has been your favorite fishing trip?
Like I said, I went down to, Venice, Louisiana, which was a lot of fun. It would definitely be up there as far as, one of those trips. It's one of those things that, how everybody's like, oh, this place, the fish are always biting and you're always going to catch them. I was like, it's still fishing, like when we went up
Yeah.
there, it was blowing hard like every single day, you know what I mean? And so conditions were a little different than they usually were. And so we had to work a lot harder to find the fish. But again, once you find them and you're on top of them and like seeing those big yellow school buses like bust out of the water for your bait, like it's insane. There's nothing like it for sure. But then more recently, I, went up to the Tennessee mountains and went fly fishing, with my little kids and stuff like that. And, that was just a special memory as well. Like, being up there and catching my first trout on fly and, being able to spend that time with them and watch them reel in trout, So I
Yeah.
don't know. There's so many good memories that it's hard to, quantify just one. So, but definitely a few of my favorites for sure.
What is a bucket list fish for you to go and catch? Maybe you've already caught it or something that you're wanting to go catch.
Definitely offshore, I'd say for sure. I definitely want to probably a blue marlin or like a sailfish or, some kind of pelagic fish that, I just need to get offshore more and have some friends with big boats and, expenses to be able to go out there. Cause like I said, it's not, as
The-
easy as going inshore for sure, but, it's a lot of fun. And then, also I want to travel some more, so like Australia, it's got some really crazy reef fish and insane things over there. And so, a lot of list places versus fish. It's like I want to go there and
Right.
just see what they have and explore it and catch what's there for sure. So
Yeah.
definitely one of those.
That's sick. Well, because and not being, I mean, the closest beach to us is Tybee Island, and it's
Nice, yeah.
5.5 hours. And
Hmm.
um, so when we think of like bucket list fish, we mainly just think of freshwater because that's what we have around. To have
Hmm.
somebody say, well, "I want to go catch a marlin," it kind of blows my mind. Just to be like, well, I mean, I've never never really even think about
There's
putting
options.
salt
There's
water.
so
Yeah,
many
there is.
options.
So, so have you ever caught a shark? And and how do you go about, like, once you get it in? How do you go about like handling the shark? I mean, because I know you don't want to really try to get it in the kayak with you or whatever. So
Oh yeah, no. I mean, hopefully, like I said, a lot of the sharks that you'll catch around here, unless you're like targeting some of the bigger redfish and stuff like that, sometimes you will hook
mm,
into some of the larger sharks. But some of the, mostly it's a lot of like black tip, smaller black tip sharks and
yeah,
bonnet heads and things like that. Um, and I mean, the best thing is don't bring them into the kayak, don't bring them into the boat because, like I said, they're thrashing around, they're freaking out, they've got sharp
oh yeah,
teeth. Even their skin, a lot of people don't realize it's very tough and it can actually cut you pretty bad as well.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like an armor, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's just don't even bring them in the boat. The best thing is, bring them to the side of the boat. For the smaller ones, you can use pliers if you know what you're doing, and just get the hook and kind of shake them off at the side of the boat and, get them off that way. But a lot of times, those longer dehookers, if you, again, if you're going out there and there's a chance of you hooking into a larger shark, have the proper equipment to be able to handle
right.
them. It's going to save you time. It's going to save the shark and their mortality, So those longer dehookers, same thing, side of the boat, grab the hook, use those dehookers, get it out, and then just let them go. Don't even bring them in the boat is your best bet for sure. Same with
Yeah,
the
because
stingrays.
I tell you, and I've caught a shark. Is a I've caught a black tip and a bonnet head, which, when
Mhm.
the first time that I caught a bonnet head, I was like, I got a hammerhead,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so, but we had gone out and actually out of Charleston,
Nice.
and we had to go 50, 60 miles out to get into the Gulf Stream.
Mhm.
And so when we had gotten on to where we had caught a couple sharks, and uh, so we actually got it into the boat, and the guy was like, "Here, you want to take it home?" And I guess they eat it or whatever,
Yeah.
um, and so I was like, "Nah." And I actually got to hold uh, a little shark, and it was funny. Like the guy, the deckhand, he was wanting it, and so he was like, "Here, just grab the tail." And so he said, "But we got to kill it before we put it into the box and stuff like, or into their cooler that they had."
Hmm.
And he said, "Just grab it by its tail and like." He said, "And just windmill this thing onto the deck of the boat, and just wow, wow." And that's how
That's
he
not
ended
good.
up. And so I was like, "All right." And so,
No.
and so he, but I was surprised like that how you talked about their skin and stuff. I would
Hmm.
think that it would be like smooth
Hmm.
um, and just like real slippery, but
Hmm.
it felt like like sandpaper, not really
Yep.
fine grit
Hmm.
sandpaper, but it was a little bit more gritty than that. It was
Yeah,
kind of
for sure.
surprising.
Yeah. No, sharks are definitely, a thing of topic down here, especially like around a lot of the commercial and recreational anglers because,
Hmm.
especially Florida, they're just really bad as far as even being able to go out there and catch fish. Like they'll come and, actually eat your catch before you can get it to the boat. And so there's been a lot of talk about like more people actually eating shark because there's so many of them and they really need to. And
Right.
then there's like the whole thing of like, obviously certain species are protected and stuff like that. And then, like you said, why would I want to eat a shark kind of thing? But,
Yeah.
you know, people say they're good, and you can, with your, valid fishing license, saltwater fishing license, keep sharks and eat them under certain species, but definitely don't do it like that guy, just, dispatch them humanely, a lot of times you want
No
to bleed them
windmills
out
is
because
what
they
you're
have a very
saying.
metallic taste, but definitely no windmilling. I wouldn't.
So
Maybe don't drop that
and
charter
and
name
I
anywhere.
and I will just say this. I was probably about 11 or 12 when that happened. So
Seeing you're
but
still
that's all,
scarred. Yeah.
and that's all that I remember is him just telling, just windmill that sucker.
See, because that's how a lot of people are just, yeah, frustrated with how many there are, like the shark
Yeah.
predation. But at the same time, it's like there's a way to go about it. And
So
I wouldn't, yeah, wouldn't recommend that.
so uh, do in Charleston, does the tarpons come up that far?
Yeah, yeah, especially in the summertime right now is a really, really good time to catch them. A lot of people have been catching them out front and, certain areas and stuff like that. So it's definitely a cool thing that, a lot of people don't realize that there are turpin here.
Yeah. And does manatees move up that far north as well?
Yeah, same in the summertime. We'll get them here in the summertime, and certain creeks and stuff like that, but not like anywhere like in Florida where there's just like
Right.
herds of them and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Because we had I had went of out of Savannah, Tybee area,
Hmm.
and we were just doing some inshore fishing, and we actually had two of them come right by, and that was the first time that I had ever seen one like live. Excuse
Live
me.
action.
And because I always growing up, I'd always wanted to go to Clearwater
Mm-hmm.
and to go swim with them.
Mm-hmm.
And but then they broke my heart when they come out to where you can't swim with them anymore. So,
Yeah.
um, but I didn't realize that like how like massive that those things are too, and they just kind of
Mm-hmm.
just swim and float around and stuff. It
Mm-hmm.
was kind of amazing to see them in person. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They love the fresh water, so they always come up to people's dock to drink the fresh water from their hose, which again is contraindicated.
right, they who Happy, who was it that we had on and that we were talking about manatees? And that he said that they would leave. Some people would leave like a water just kind of dripping from their
Yeah.
docks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Um, I don't know. Yeah,
so
that's what I was thinking. Man, I know I've heard that, and I was thinking it was a video, but it was a guy that was we a guest that we had on the podcast.
Oh, I know who it was. It was Neil Starks
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
Fishing with America's Finest,
yeah,
and he lives
yeah,
down in Miami area,
yeah.
and
Oh
he
yeah,
said
for
that
sure.
that is a problem that they've had, especially uh, when they've kind of that they're not on like the main channel, that they will when they kind of go back up into
Hmm.
the sloughs or creeks or whatever canals, the where people are doing it, but the water has gotten so low now that they're still trying to get back up there, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
trapping them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
they're
um,
getting it's unnatural behavior. The biggest thing, like we talked about earlier with the alligators, it's like just let nature be. Sometimes, it's the best thing
yeah.
you can do to protect it.
Yeah, yeah, without a
So,
doubt.
do you have? I know you do like events all the time and stuff to where you speak. Do you have any events and stuff that you have that are coming up?
Yeah, I do. I'm actually launching some virtual classes to be able to try to reach some more people and, different audiences that wouldn't,
Nice.
be able to attend locally. So I'm going to have, a ladies fishing 101 coming up that'll help, which is kind of the foundational basic skills we kind of talked about to kind of get started fishing. And then I'm going to have a co-ed saltwater fishing 101. So that's just for anybody that, wants to learn about the tides, learn about the structure. We'll learn about what the fish are doing, different rigs, different, even line types, that would be beneficial to help them in saltwater. So I'm going to host that September 19th. So I'll be posting more details on that for registration here soon. So
Oh heck
love to
yeah.
have some people out.
So do y'all have a lot of like expos and stuff that are in your area?
Not as much as, Florida. I feel like Florida definitely has a lot more kind of smaller outdoor shows and things like that.
Right.
We just had this one this past weekend, which was the PD Outdoor Classic, and then we
Right.
host the Palmetto Outdoors Sportsman's Outdoors Classic, which is in March usually. So that's, one of the bigger ones up in upstate South Carolina. But we definitely need to do more, I feel like, for sure.
Yeah. And that's one thing like I've I kind of that I like about, besides like the fishing, I like the fact that you're actually getting out and talking about what you're doing, and in more of like a classroom setting type deal. I think that that's pretty cool to be able to kind of reach out and be able to maybe teach somebody something that they may not have thought about or
Mhm.
even know about to even do. So, um, but we've had you on for almost an hour, and I don't want to hold you up because I know that we kind of had technical issues earlier, and so we don't want to hold you up too much longer.
Well, hang on,
Um,
Colin. I've got two more questions that I need to ask her
all
before we
right.
let her go.
Yeah.
The first question is, could you explain to our audience that may not know what pluff mud is?
Yeah. Yeah, they missed that conversation earlier. That was a good Um, yeah, so I was telling y'all, Pluff Mud is more kind of a terminology per se here in the Low Country. And if you're not familiar with the Low Country, it's here in Charleston, South Carolina, down on our coastal region. It's called the Low Country. And so Pluff Mud is a term for kind of the coastal mud that makes up our marshes here. Oftentimes, if you come down to Charleston, you kind of smell that rotten egg or sulfur smell. That's the Pluff Mud. It's actually very important for the ecosystem. Any of the kind of dead organic material, it will break down those nutrients and return it into the marsh grass, and actually restore that nutrients, which is really, really cool. A lot of people don't realize. So that sulfur smell you smell is actually the nutrients. So it's, very important. It's something that, I grew up playing in, grew up loving here in the Low Country. And so it was just something that kind of coined over time. But, the Pluff Mud is definitely very important here in Low Country.
Well, there we go, guys. That's what pluff mud is.
Write it down.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So, you said you had two questions. So, what is?
Well, that's our final question.
Oh, okay, okay. So, we will. I want to in the description, guys, is all of her Katie Joe's links to her social media. Go in and click on those and hit that like, follow, share. Send her a message saying that you saw her on Deck Talk podcast, and and support. She does some phenomenal stuff, great content, and um, so I want y'all to be able to. That's why we brought her on, to be able to share and her with you and the content that she does. Even though you may not be around saltwater, but you may one time be able to go and do some saltwater fishing and then remember something that she had said.
Hmm.
So make sure you go and check out all her links and stuff. And again, hit that like, follow, and subscribe, and make sure you share it out. Um, but with that being said, Pappy, what is our last question?
Well, first, I just want to say, Katie, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. I mean, just listening to you, the knowledge that you have gained over the years of doing what you do, and you could tell you're very passionate about it. It's very rewarding, in I guess you could say. But thank you again for coming on the podcast. But with that being said, if there was one person that you could fish with, whether they're here with us today or not, who would that person be and why?
Honestly, I think also I want to say, first off, thank you guys for inviting me on and, thank you for taking the time and, having this, fun conversation. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. And, thank you to your audience as well for tuning in. And so, it's been great being here. But honestly, I think today in, tribute in memory of, everything she's done, I think Dolly Parton would be a good answer, not
Oh
only
Yeah,
wow,
for everything
yeah,
she's done for country music, but, just the person she was, you know what I mean? She was
yes,
humble
yes,
to the end. She gave back everything she was given and, earned herself, and I think that would just, at the end of the day, that's who you'd want to go fishing with, just a good
yeah,
soul and a good person. So, in
yeah,
tribute to her,
absolutely,
rest in peace to a legend for sure.
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
it kind of broke my heart when we worked all night last night, and I took me a little 45 hour. Good grief,
yeah, it's about a
40
Still
45-hour
napping.
nap.
yeah,
He's still
40
napping.
45 minute power nap, and I woke up to that, and I was like, oh no,
Yeah,
But yeah, she touched a lot of hearts, and just how humble she is. I mean, I never got to meet her personally, but you can just tell certain
yeah,
people. I mean, they just
Mhm.
throw that certain vibe off. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And when
rest.
she's from not too far from here,
Yeah,
and her husband and her got married actually in the town just south of us in Ringgold, Georgia. And
yep,
Oh,
so
that's so special. That's awesome.
they used to spend a lot of time and had a house here in the Chattanooga
hmm,
area. And so,
That's so neat.
yep,
um, but that is definitely for sure that somebody that I've been fortunate to be able to meet, and she will definitely be missed and stuff. So, um, the traveling fisherman asks, "Do you ever fish with other content creators?"
Yeah, definitely, definitely. There's a lot of people that I need to probably, like I said, as far as the freshwater goes, I need to get up there. I know there's a few people I owe some trips to, so
yep.
definitely,
Come
yeah.
on.
Always shoot me a message. I'm always happy to, not only go and explore new places, but catch new species, and meet new friends along the way. So
You took
definitely,
that 45 hour power nap too, didn't you?
I think I need a 45-hour power nap is what I need. Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah, because and I don't know if you know the traveling fisherman. His wife is
Hmm,
a travel
Nurse.
nurse, and
cool.
so their home base is out of like Tampa area, but
Sweet.
right now
So
he's in
familiar.
Maine, and so like the past
Hmm,
year they've been in Alaska,
cool.
and then oh shoot, in Missouri, uh, doing, and then they went down to Florida. And now they're in Maine. They're fixing to in a couple of weeks. They're going to be heading somewhere else, and
Mm,
so, um, but yeah, he's a good one as well. So, um, but Katie Joe, thank you so much, and we need to have you on again, and because we thoroughly enjoyed the chit chatting with you and learning stuff, because all the saltwater stuff is very new. We're as green can be when it comes to saltwater,
Hmm.
and so, but we want to thank you so much, for coming on. And I'm trying to think of who we have on. Um, I think next week we have. I don't have it in my calendar. Maybe this one. Um, oh, we've got Boyd Duckett coming on next week, and he is going to be talking about. We're going to talk to him about the new rules and stuff that they are doing with the Toyota series, and I think the BFLs. So there's new rules that they are coming out with just this year. Um, so so tune in for next week. Again, Katie, thank you so much. Maybe sometime that we can get together and go wet a line if you come up here to Chattanooga area, or if we happen to head down that way, it'd be a pleasure to go out and wet a line with you.
Yeah,
Which
definitely.
we'll be out
Always have an
that we'll
invite
be
down
out
here.
that way next Bassmasters Classic.
When we talked about the expos earlier, I was like, wait, I think they actually are. We're actually getting something here in South Carolina. So yeah,
Yeah,
no, that'll be
yeah,
Yeah,
awesome. That'll be great. Yeah, well,
yep.
yeah.
maybe we'll plan for them. We'll go get some redfish and we won't do any shark windmills, okay?
Oh man, she kind of broke my heart when she said
well,
that's not the
I
proper
tell
way
you
of doing
what,
it, Pappy.
I tell you what, Katie, we'll just windmill him off the boat. How about that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I'm telling you what. I'm like, next time I see y'all, I'm gonna just be already going.
Yeah, when we're crossing paths, that's all we do, and we know that's saying, "What's
Yep.
up?"
Yep. You already know the signal. He was like, I was like 10 when that happened. It's like, wow. He still
I
remembers
tell you,
vividly.
I remember that windmill, and I try when I play slow pitch softball. I try to do the same windmill. So
They're like, son, what's wrong with you? It's like, I learned this from a shark trip, coach.
Yeah,
that shark
yeah.
trip, that's it.
No, silly. Well,
So
thank you guys.
Awesome.
It's been a
thank
Uh,
you
pleasure,
so
truly.
much.
Thanks for having me on.
thank
Y'all
you.
have a good one.
All right. Take care, guys.
All right. Bye.